Well, would you look at that, 2024 is almost halfway done, and just as we suspected, a whole bunch of video games already came out, and it sure as heck looks like that trend is going to continue throughout the rest of the year. So in the interest of keeping you up to date, here are 2024's biggest game releases that still haven't happened yet, that we currently know about right now, but that could change, but let's just get into the video. Now, before we get into it, just a heads up that everything in here is subject to change. A whole bunch of games have vague release windows, but not hard dates, and it's possible they get kicked down the road. And it's also very possible that some major surprises get revealed during the various summer gaming events, which we probably would have mentioned in this video had we known about them. But as of 1:03 p.m. on Monday, May 6, 2024, here is what is coming out in the rest of 2024. May is already underway, but here are a couple highlights. Literally hours before I recorded this video, Hades 2 hit Steam Early Access, and IGN gave the Early Access version a 9 out of 10, which is pretty wild when you consider that Supergiant Games has said that this is going to be in Early Access for at least the rest of 2024, so it's probably only going to get way better. But that's also not that shocking when you factor in how good the first game is. It won IGN's Game of the Year for whatever year it came out in, so that's on PC for the time being, and it will be hitting consoles down the road at some point. On the 14th, Ghost of Tsushima Director's Cut hits PC, continuing Sony's recent habit of porting its first-party PlayStation games to reach a wider audience. Hopefully, Sucker Punch's gorgeous open world looks as great and runs as well as it does on consoles, and also that modders replace the character models with weird stuff and upload videos online so I can have a sensible chuckle. Meanwhile, Microsoft continues its habit of having those first-party Xbox games also available on PC day and date, and Senua's Saga Hellblade 2 is no exception, and on the 21st, it'll be available on Xbox Series and the personal computer. Nintendo doesn't put its games anywhere that don't say Nintendo on them, and that doesn't look like it's going to change anytime soon, but if you've got a Switch that says Nintendo on it, you can play Paper Mario: The Thousand-Year Door, a complete cover-to-cover remake of the 2004 GameCube classic. On May 31st, F1 24 hits all the Xboxes and PlayStations and PCs, and it is a game in which multiple cars must drive very fast in an attempt to outpace each other, and the one that is the fastest is declared the winner. You probably already knew that. A game about race cars is pretty self-explanatory, but a game where Bugs Bunny, Superman, and LeBron James all beat each other up may require slightly more context.
Obviously.
Well, Super Smash Bros. Is massively popular, and somebody at WB Games probably just suggested, hey, what if we did that with some iconic characters from Warner Brothers properties, but also LeBron James, a real human man who has never met a cartoon character, except in that Space Jam movie we all collectively forgot about.
I'm a cartoon?
Anyway, now there's Multiversus, which sort of came out last year in Early Access, but on May 28th, it's officially out for good on everything except Switch. On to June. On June 4th, exactly a month too late to capitalize on the whole May the 4th be with you thing, Star Wars Hunters hits Switch and mobile. This free-to-play team-based arena battler has been in the works for quite a while, and it's definitely the silliest a non-Lego Star Wars game has been in a cool minute. You can play as two Jawas, one sitting on the other one's shoulders like they're trying to sneak into an R-rated movie, or you can be an Ugnaught that's piloting a droidica like a tiny little mech, or you can be a droid who thinks it's a Jedi. I'm skeptical about another free-to-play multiplayer game trying to compete for players' attention, but I applaud this one for at the very least having fun with the assignment. That same day, Life by You hits Early Access, and if you're looking at this thinking, hey, this looks just like The Sims, well, you might be onto something. Development of this is being led by Rod Humble, the guy who used to be in charge of the Sims label for EA and was also the CEO of Second Life. This is published by Paradox Interactive, who gave us the best SimCity games this decade in the form of Cities Skylines and its sequel, so if you're wondering when EA is going to make a new Sims game instead of just expansions, this might be of interest to you. And look, if EA doesn't want someone else eating their lunch, maybe they shouldn't let it get cold. Speaking of expansion packs, that same day sees the release of Destiny 2: The Final Shape, which will come on every platform that Destiny 2 is currently on. I don't want to spoil anything, but if I had to guess, I'm going to bet that this final shape is round. Probably a circle or a sphere, maybe an oval, potentially a ring. But between Marathon's original logo and Halo's eponymous ring world and Destiny's big white ball, the Traveler, just kind of seems like Bungie's MO. Then again, the final shape could also be a more abstract sort of shape, like when you say you're getting in shape. When you achieve that shape, do you stay that way forever? I don't know, maybe you do. Good for you if you do that. And hey, if you get a little silly at the barbecues this summer, that's cool too. You do you.
It's about staying focused on your goals.
Some of you in the comments are probably like, who is this clown? And I would ask you the same thing about this clown, and maybe also this clown. And if you said those are not regular clowns, they are killer clowns from outer space, well, good job, because that is exactly what they are. This is the latest asymmetrical multiplayer game from IllFonic, who gave us Friday the 13th the game, Predator Hunting Grounds, and Ghostbusters Spirits Unleashed, and now they're giving the 1988 cult classic the same treatment on PS5, Series X, and PC. On June 14th, Shin Megami Tensei 5 Vengeance is back with a vengeance, but only on Switch, since it's technically the first time this game has come to any other platforms, and you can't be back with anything if you were never there to begin with. In any case, this is an enhanced version of the 2021 Atlas JRPG that is now available on Switch and PC and the Xboxes and the PlayStations. If you want an ass-kicking, meet me under the Erd tree on June 21st, and we can get our kicked together by whatever unholy monstrosities those lovely folks at FromSoft have cooked up for Elden Ring's long-awaited expansion, Shadow of the Erd Tree. If you give a gold-pickled foul-foot about this type of video game, you already know what the is going on over here, and you're probably counting down the days that is on everything that Elden Ring is already on. If you don't want to get good in Elden Ring, you can get bananas in Super Monkey Ball Rumble or get scared in Luigi's Mansion 2 HD, which both hit Switch on the 25th and 27th, respectively. Moving on to July, on the 2nd, Final Fantasy XIV's Dawn Trail expansion drops on all the platforms which you can currently play Final Fantasy XIV on, which I guess now includes the Xbox Series. If you know what Final Fantasy XIV is, you probably either decided not to play it years ago, or you're already well aware of everything you could possibly expect and want and need from the expansion, and you know that you're gonna play it, or not. I don't know what you do with your free time, that's entirely up to you. On July 5th, The Legend of Heroes Trails Through Daybreak finally gets a Western release on PS4, PS5, Switch, and PC. This was released in Japan back in 2021, and in the time it took NIS America to officially localize it, fans released their own translation, against which the publisher had to take legal action, and they had to take that down. Anyway, now you can play it legally, officially, and if you're not keeping track, this is the latest installment in the Trails series, as in Trails of Cold Steel, not to be confused with the Tales of series or the Trials series. They're all different things. On July 18th, PC and Xbox Series players can take a nice relaxing joint in the Austrian countryside in Dungeons of Hinterberg, which is an action RPG, but it's one about going on vacation, and if that sounds too laid back, you can beat the summer heat by making a bunch of people freeze to death in Frostpunk 2, which is coming to both new-gen platforms and PC. On August 2nd, World of Goo 2 is out for Switch and PC. Remember World of Goo? Well, it's so old that the goo probably dried up or melted or whatever goo does if you let it sit for 16 years, which is somehow how long it's been since that game came out. Anyway, you can do new goo on 8/2. If a World of Goo isn't for you, on August 8th, you can forego a realm of viscous solids for one of atomized liquids in SteamWorld Heist, the latest entry in the series that switches genre with pretty much every new release, and this time it's a turn-based tactical strategy game. Also on August 8th, Review Starlight Eldorado hits Steam and PC. That is a brand new visual novel based on the multimedia franchise that spans stage musicals, animated musicals, musical films, and a mobile game, which I'm guessing probably had some music. Will the visual novel be appropriately musical in addition to visual? We'll have to see. On August 20th, everybody's Wukong for the weekend. Black Myth Wukong, that is. The massively anticipated action RPG hits PC, PS5, and Xbox Series, and this is a Souls-like spin on the great Chinese epic novel Journey to the West. So if you've ever wanted a gritty and realistic take on Dragon Ball, where Goku was a full-on monkey, and there's no wish-granting spheres to bring people back to life, and Ninja Theory's 2010 game Enslaved Odyssey to the West didn't cut it, well, here you go. On August 30th, Star Wars Outlaws gives us our first proper open world game set in a galaxy far, far away, basically ever? Like seriously, how has it taken this long? The best we've gotten are a few big sandboxy areas in Disney Infinity 3.0, LEGO Star Wars The Skywalker Saga, and the big hub world of Kobo in Jedi Survivor. Star Wars Hunters actually advertises itself as the first open world Star Wars game, which may technically be true, but it's also a multiplayer arena battler thing, so I don't know if that counts. But really, what took so long? Well, if you're actually asking, EA had an exclusive monopoly on Star Wars games for a solid decade, and they've got more of a reputation for closed studios than open worlds. Anyway, Ubisoft, who makes basically nothing but open worlds, got to take a crack at a Star Wars game, and unsurprisingly, it's a big old open world where you can zip around on a speeder bike, and you can probably climb some kind of towers to unlock sections of the map, and probably liberate outposts from the various factions of bad guys. Plus, it's set between Empire and Jedi, and it's framed around the criminal underworld rather than the larger fate of the galaxy, and there's no lightsabers that I'm aware of, and it's kind of a spiritual successor to Shadows of the Empire. So I'm looking forward to this one, and really, I just want to run around in that universe, and maybe Dengar's there, who knows? That's on PC, Xbox Series, and PS5. On September 5th, Stalker 2 Heart of Chernobyl is finally slated to hit Xbox Series and PC, the long-awaited follow-up to the 15-year-old Stalker Call of Pripyat. This game is really fascinating in how it intersects with reality. For starters, it's inspired by the Tarkovsky movie of the same name, which was in turn inspired by the sci-fi novella Roadside Picnic, right? Both of these take place in a post-apocalyptic no man's land. However, they predate the real-world 1986 nuclear meltdown that resulted in Chernobyl becoming an exclusion zone. In the time since the first Stalker game came out, that zone has become open to the public. It's become a tourist destination, which kind of changes the whole air of mystery about it. Unfortunately, given some more recent tragic real-world circumstances, namely the still ongoing Russian invasion of Ukraine, that's not really the case these days, and that's also obviously a major hurdle in this game's development. So I'm really happy that this game is finally seeing the light of day, partially because the devs have been through semi-literal hell to finish it, but also because it looks like a really cool video game. So bravo to that team. I hope the game gets received well. Anyway, on September 8th, Warhammer 40k Space Marine 2 hits PC, PS5, and Xbox Series, and for any Gears of War fans sitting around polishing their Lancers and wishing there was a new installment in that beloved series about hulking soldiers in power armor plowing through hordes of bad guys with an arsenal of ranged weaponry and a heaping side of chainsaw melee combat, probably ruining a bunch of gothic architecture in the process, possibly in co-op, well, this game might hold you over. In 2011, the first Space Marine was received as an extremely solid Gears-like, and this long overdue sequel looks to continue the tradition for a new generation, both of game consoles and of angry teenagers of all ages. If Warhammer 40k is too grimdark and you and your pals still want to kill a whole lot of stuff together, on the 29th there's Earth Defense Force World Brothers 2, which takes the whole EDF formula of run around and zap a bunch of giant bugs and other big stuff, but puts it in a colorful voxel world that's on PlayStations and Switch. On October 4th, the fine folks at Atlus who gave us the Shin Megami Tensei and Persona games are back with Metaphor Fantazio, a whole new IP that's got some very familiar systems and vibes, but is clearly doing its own thing. You can expect turn-based combat and various social systems, but it's in a medieval fantasy setting. But you know, like a medieval fantasy setting with some absolutely bonkers art direction, a number of the monsters you're going to be fighting are based on the nightmarish creations of the 16th century Dutch painter Hieronymus Bosch, who's probably my favorite artist ever, but it also might not be readily apparent because there's just so much other going on the screen. Anyway, that's on PS4, PS5, Xbox Series, and PC. As a great woman once said, there's no fate but what we make for ourselves, and in the open world survival game Terminator Survivors, you're probably going to have to gather a bunch of resources and crafting components to make said fate. This basically looks like State of Decay, but with Skynet instead of zombies, which is kind of cool. That hits early access on PC on the 24th, but we don't know when Judgment Day is going to be for a full release or console versions. To borrow another Sarah Connor quote, from this point forward, the future, always so clear to me, has become like a black highway at night, and we don't have any hard release dates for anything else in this video. But I can give you some vague release windows as of this recording. Greedfall 2: The Dying World is expected to hit early access sometime this summer. The prequel flips the script to the 2019 action RPG, and instead of playing as a settler in the new world, you play as one of the indigenous people of said new world who's been brought back to the old world where stuff is real messed up. And bear in mind, this is heavily inspired by real world history, but also totally in its own fantasy setting. That'll presumably come to consoles at some point as well. If you ever thought, hey, someone should make a hand-drawn 2D action RPG where you play as a rat with a sword and you fight a bunch of other small animals like in those Redwall books, and the guy who plays Geralt is the narrator, well, I have great news. They already made that game in 2021. It's called Tales of Iron, but here's some even better news. It's getting a sequel at some point this year called Tales of Iron 2: Whiskers of Winter that is slated for release on everything. If you'd rather play a 3D action RPG where you are a regular-sized person, Avowed is hitting Xbox Series and PC sometime this fall, which is set in the fantasy universe of Obsidian's Pillars of Eternity games, but this time you can get up close and personal thanks to a first-person perspective and real-time combat. If 3D is too many Ds but you still want a G with some action-packed RPing, Beyond Galaxyland is exactly that, and it's coming to everything, and it features a guinea pig with a gun named Boom Boom. I just thought you should know that. That's relevant information, isn't it? If you'd rather play a first-person action RPG set in the mystical realm of Seattle, Washington, well, you can do that in Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines 2 on New Gen and PC. As you may have put together, this game is based on the pen and paper RPG. I did an interview about this game at E3 2019, at which point it was expected to come out in 2020, but since then it got delayed several times before being handed off to a new developer entirely, the Chinese Room, the studio behind the Amnesia games. Here's hoping this game finally comes out, and playing it makes me feel like an immortal creature of the night, because putting up these coming soon roundup videos for the last 5 years about it sure as hell makes me feel old. We've had a wide range of Lord of the Rings games that capture the different walks of life from Tolkien's universe, from the orc slaughtering rangers to pickaxe wielding dwarves to, busted ass Gollum.
What did you call me?
And now the cozy-looking Tales of the Shire, which is concerning hobbits. Hobbits, of course, are generally not concerned with matters more serious than keeping their gardens presentable and what's being served for breakfast, second breakfast, 11s, luncheon, afternoon tea, dinner, and supper, and this is a game about making sure that all that stuff is taken care of. That's on PS5, Xbox Series, Switch, and PC sometime this fall, ideally on September 22nd, because that's Bilbo's birthday. Everybody knows that.
I don't know half of you half as well as I should like, and I like less than half of you half as well as you deserve.
If you want a game about crafting stuff and gathering food and not wearing shoes, but also one where dinosaurs try to attack you that'll soon be a major motion picture starring Vin Diesel, well, Ark 2 is supposed to come out at some point. That'll be hitting PC and Xbox Series. At some point this fall, The Wolf Among Us 2 will continue Telltale's episodic narrative adventure that started over a decade ago. Bear in mind, since then, the original Telltale games shut down and a new company was formed under that same name that retained their assets but not much of the original team. However, for Wolf Among Us 2, the new Telltale enlisted the help of Ad Hoc Studios, which is made up of Telltale alums, so hopefully it's worth the wait and feels just like the original did. That's planned for PC, both PlayStations and Xboxes. I still don't believe it's happening, but Metal Gear Solid Delta, aka Triangle, aka the Snake Eater remake, is supposedly out this year, and that'll be on new gen and PC. Same goes for Test Drive Unlimited, Solar Crown, and if it feels like a little while since the last Test Drive game, it's actually been 13 years, so hopefully that's worth the wait as well. Speaking of fast things, Sonic X Shadow Generations will come to all the platforms probably right in time for the third movie hitting theaters in December. Visions of Mana doesn't have gun-toting hedgehogs, but it does have vicious rabbit-like monsters, and you can ride around on a giant dog who looks just like my dog. I'd be lying if I said I didn't daydream about what it would be like if he was the size of a horse, or if I was the size of a doll and I could ride around on him, but in reality, he would probably just eat me. Still, it's fun to dream. Visions of Mana is coming to everything but Switch. Coming to everything including Switch at some point is Little Nightmares 3, which continues Bandai Namco's creepy-ass puzzle platformer series, but this installment is being developed by Supermassive Games, a studio known for much more realistic cinematic horror like the Dark Pictures anthology and Until Dawn, so I'm curious what kind of creepy stuff they bring to the table. Coming to everything including Switch, but not PS4 or Xbox One, so I guess not exactly everything, is The Plucky Squire, a literally and figuratively novel-looking puzzle adventure where you hop between the pages of books. Two of the most iconic pop culture heroes who regularly swing from stuff using ropes of one form or another are Batman and Indiana Jones. And they're both getting new games this year. Bats is getting Arkham Shadow, an all-new VR experience exclusively on MetaQuest 3, and Indy is solving the mystery of the Great Circle on Xbox Series and PC, and those will both be out sometime later this year. There are a bunch of games that are currently in beta or early access, or that were at some point in recent memory, which are supposedly going to drop before 2025. For instance, Escape from Tarkov Arena is still in beta on PC, but that hasn't stopped the devs from selling $250 special editions and getting everyone all riled up. There's no official release date for Zenless Zone Zero, the new game from Genshin Impact developer Hoyoverse, but the App Store may have leaked July 3rd. That'll also be coming to PC and PS5. Blue Protocol, which looks to be Bandai Namco's answer to Genshin, has had a few closed tests and is still slated for release this year and will eventually be on PC, PS5, and Xbox Series. There's also the 33-player co-op roguelike 33 Immortals, which is coming to PC and Xbox Series, following a closed beta sometime in late May and early June. There are a ton of announced games that don't have any release windows which could come out this year, but considering that 2024 is almost half over, we figured that some of these are still a ways off. For instance, Marvel's Wolverine. I mean, obviously it's Marvel's Wolverine. That's the official title of the PS5 game from Insomniac. I would love it if that dropped this year, but I'm not holding my breath. Meanwhile, Monolith's Wonder Woman game that was announced ages ago and hasn't gotten any updates in almost as long. There's Metroid Prime 4, which got a logo at E3 7 whole years ago, but the biggest question mark block for 2024 is Nintendo's new console, the Switch 2, the Super Switch, the Switch Advance, whatever you want to call it. Heavily rumored it's coming out this year, but also kind of rumored that it's coming out next year, which either way, it'll have a whole slew of new games along with it, and those are all being kept tightly under wrap, and it'll all be very exciting, and we'll have plenty to talk about when that gets announced, and we will definitely tell you about it here on IGN. And on that note, what are you playing this year? What didn't make this list that you feel like that should have been on the list? Let us know in the comments, and if you stuck with me this long, you can join me every 4 weeks or so for another video just like this, except focus on a specific upcoming month. We go into all the games that are coming out. It's the same deal. I make bad jokes along the way. Sometimes I'll show you my dog. Thank you for watching. My producer and editor are gonna take turns beating me over the head with a keyboard if I make this video any longer, so on that note, goodbye.